My name's Alan Peddie. I work at the University of Edinburgh. Part of that job is to look after the Warpit portal for the University of Edinburgh. Internally, we essentially use it as it's intended, as a place for people to share reusable items. And the big focus next is on lab equipment. There's quite a lot of labs at the university, and the kind of move next is to try and see if people want to share laboratory equipment internally. Back maybe kind of 2 years ago, we'd had a discussion with people in our IT team, which revolved around the idea that people were already using kind of ad hoc email lists to say, oh, I've got 3 spare PCs. Does anyone want them? They're perfectly fine. So when we said, well, why don't we formalize this across the whole university? Why don't we put them on Warpit and see if more people want them? There was concerns that data implications. So after long discussions we have a records management department, we have an IT department, we have a waste department, social responsibility, all these people helped get us to the point where a wiping technology that we use locally wipes them to a level that's acceptable for us to reuse internally. We kind of got the green light to start reusing PCs internally, which has been a huge boom for reuse internally and externally, actually, on the back of some really fruitful discussions. We already had really good ties with external partners anyway, thanks to our waste department. So an example would be the British Heart Foundation have these big red bins that they put up at accommodation services where the students are, and it's a closed drop-off point. They were really, really good at coming in, taking a bunch of stuff, and then retrospectively we would put the stuff through Warpit as a way of kind of measuring it. And that was the real kind of first start of realising there's a home for things that we don't necessarily need anymore, and there's a million charities out there that are willing to do it. Every year we send about 3,000 PCs to electronics waste contractors, so it's not like these things go in the bin, but they're recycled. When we started having discussions about could we find a home for these internally, very quickly we found out the answer was yes, and at decent volume. A social enterprise locally in Edinburgh called ReMade in Edinburgh were very, very keen to get their hands on our gear, because they are very, very good at fixing things and then teaching people how to also fix those things and putting them back in the system. So on a very, very basic level, over the past, say, 2 years, we have found all of these machines that don't have any use in the uni. They're either too old or we don't have anywhere to store them. We got over the data problem by physically just removing the hard drive. We give them to ReMade in Edinburgh. We're talking 500 machines over the past 2 years. And they're happy to take them, buy hard drives on the cheap, refurb these machines, and then sell them to people who can't necessarily afford or don't want to pay full price for a desktop PC that can work really, really well for a good 3, 4, 5, even 6 years. But there's just no use for it at the uni for various different reasons. The biggest one was storage. Now we've got over that storage problem. We're noticing the same kind of numbers being reused internally, but the spillover still going to ReMade in Edinburgh. So if we get 50 machines, 40 of them are perfectly fine to reuse internally. We'll fix them up, we'll reuse them. Those 10 that we can, ReMade will come in, they'll take them, we remove the hard drives, and everyone wins. So the biggest thing I always found is, if you go to these people who are the kind of gatekeepers internally, who might not necessarily be the people who want to help you change, if you go to them with, I have this problem, you are the expert in this area, can you help me solve this problem? Their ego won't be able to handle it. They'll help you. They'll turn around and say, like the records management people, I didn't go to them and say, I want to give 500 PCs to a social enterprise locally. I just said, what's the problem with giving a hard drive out externally? And it got explained to me very, very clearly what the problems were and how to get over those problems. And slowly but surely, these problems just kind of, they almost solve themselves. Talking's the biggest thing. I think one of the best things is you're really good at this actually with Warpit, is that I don't feel like Warpit is a website that's faceless. There's someone behind it that you can contact if you want some advice, you want a tip, you need to ask someone a question, and I try and be the same for that. So we were at an event recently and someone just called me Warpit Man. Oh, you're Warpit Man, I know you, I've seen your emails. Makes people realise, oh yeah, there's this person who wants to help. So I think having someone who's willing to kind of, you know, get their face out there and be the person that kind of link all these people up is invaluable.